And we are live with another episode of Brownish Live with my beautiful and talented, wait, it's this way, co-host, Sasha Merci. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy. It's another Monday that I get to, do this with you. So I'm excited.
I think you're the first person in the history of mankind to say, I'm excited it's Monday. I feel like everyone's always like, Mondays.
It's been a crazy week for me. So it's funny because I'm like, yes, a Monday, a new week.
Yeah. So it's a start. It's the fresh start to the week.
Right.
Well, I'm excited. We got a great guest today.
Yeah.
Someone you sort of introduced me to. I kind of heard the name, but I never really did a deep dive on them. And then you're like, oh, let's have this person on. So I started. I don't want to say stalking them because that just sounds creepy. Like I was like, oh, hold on, let me see what they're all about.
Stop playing.
Yeah, but there's gotta be a better word for that. I was educating, researching. Yeah, so I don't sound creepy. I was, oh, look at this.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to have her on the show. She is a host. She's a producer. Let's give it up for Kat Lazo.
Look at that.
I feel like we should have sound effects, like walking music. Applause.
I can't hear.
Uh-oh, what happened?
I knew it. She's funny. That's my baby girl. I'm so happy to have you on.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for doing your research, Erik. I appreciate when men put in, the extra labor. So I'm here for that.
Yeah. So how's it been? How's the quarantine been for you? Like, how have you been handling it?
So hold on. There's a very loud truck that is passing, of course, right at this moment.
Yeah.
This is like we're doing a news report, man, on street. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. At the beginning of COVID, first of all, I want to say that even having this conversation feels like I'm talking about centuries ago, but really it's only been 5 months?
Dude.
So 5 months ago when this first started, I was like, it wasn't affecting me a lot just because I work from home. I'm a freelancer. So a lot of my life is basically either 24/7 at home, editing, shooting, or doing whatsoever, or I'm on the road 24/7. So the shift of being home, working from home was not that impactful for me. But then the universe had a really nice way of being like, gotcha. My father was in Peru at the beginning of all of this.
Uh-oh. We lost Kat. What happened?
What happened?
Oh, no.
I'm telling you, this darn technology.
It's the COVID.
It's got
it. Damn. It's on her with Wi-Fi.
It's funny how it has her pause to it. It's like, what if she's kidding around?
What if she's faking it?
Yeah.
She's that good. So wait, how did you meet Kat?
So I met Kat through my friend Catherine Mendoza, right? Okay. And Catherine is also a producer and director, and she used to work for Me Too. And I think they used to work at Me Too together. And yeah, so she introduced me. Hey! And she's back. And she introduced me to this.
I'm back. I don't know, internet, Okay, where did I leave off? Fast forward, my father got COVID.
That was in Peru.
Wow.
Okay. Yada, yada, yada. He's got COVID.
No, okay, well, that's not funny that he had COVID.
No, I know. Just, I'm a huge fan of dark humor, so
I know.
When I laugh, you are welcome to laugh with me.
Yeah.
So my dad was stuck in Peru. We had a death in the family. I went out to Peru end of February, grieving, all of that stuff. I have to come back to New York because I'm a New Yorker. Erik thought I was from LA, but maybe we can touch on that again. Anyway, common mistake. And I came back to New York for work, and then all of a sudden COVID happened. And my father was out there basically stuck because there weren't any flights out. The only flights that they had out were humanitarian flights that the government was providing to help citizens come home. But you know what they don't say is that this humanitarian flight is also $2,000 for a one-way ticket, and then you got to pay them back. But anywho, so long story short, we brought my father back literally the day he gets home. He's not feeling well. We take him to go get tested, and they're like, he has pneumonia and probably COVID. He should probably go to the hospital. Right. So, and that was on my birthday when I got the news.
When's your birthday?
June 5th.
Oh, okay.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Yeah, happy belated birthday.
In the middle of this traumatic story you're telling, it's like, happy birthday?
No, but the good news is after 2 weeks of him being in the hospital, he's good, he's safe, he's back home, all that good stuff. So how has quarantine been for me? You know, just the usual.
So wait, what was your dad doing in Peru?
So we went out there because my tia, his sister, died. Let me just add some more, some more negativity in here. But yeah, so we had a death in the family. We went out there for a funeral. I came back home for work to New York, and then he wanted to stay out there to grieve a little more, and then the world stopped.
That's insane. Yeah. So how has it been for you creatively? I mean, I've seen that you have been putting things out there, and you have the cat call, but you're also like very good at educating people on things. So and
her unpacking series.
Yeah, actually, yes. You're right.
Look at you and your research.
I know. Oh.
When this first started, I really was hesitant to turn to social media. It was kind of one of those things where I saw everybody's turning to social media. Everybody has an IG live. Everybody's doing a new, like, some kind of virtual series or something. And as someone who has always worked in digital media, it kind of felt like, I don't want to do what everybody's doing. I don't want to do that now. But eventually, I was like, you know what? Let me just give in. And I gave in. I think what Erik's talking about is an IG live series called Unpacking, where basically I sit down with a guest each week, or at least I tried each week to sit down with a guest, and we unpack social norms, the world's social norms. We've done anything from unpacking jealousy to last week we did the police, things that are deemed as normal in our society.
What has been the most educational unpacking series that you've done?
So I did one on spanking children, hitting children, which is super normalized, especially in communities of color. And I didn't think I was going to learn that much from that series, but I was like, everyone wanted to hear it. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And honestly, I feel like the guest was Dr. Louise Locke Anhart. Yes, memory. And she's a therapist. She's a child therapist. She works with families. And I think that was the most impactful one because a lot of what she was sharing was about communication, right? And I think that thread of communication, I've now seen it come up in all of my unpacking conversations. So this idea that in order to discipline means like hit the child, scream at the child, but really you don't get anything from doing that. The child will not understand why am I not allowed to do this? Why do I have to wait? Why was this inappropriate? And you see that come up again and again and again. Or, for example, the way that we discipline is very much has resemblance of how we take care of conflict in larger society, like the police, right? Or our criminal justice system, rather. So, for example, timeout. Mm-hmm. We are taught at a very young age that extracting someone from society, leaving them and isolating them is a correct way to punish them. And so you can see that, parallels of that with our criminal justice system when we lock people up And it's like, nope, that's it. You're gone. You can you're excommunicated, cancel culture and whatnot. And so for me, the unpacking spanking children was a real surprise, because time and time again, I'm like, oh, that reminds me of what Dr. Louise Locke Anhart. I think I screwed up her name now, but
yeah.
It's funny you say that. I have 2 kids, and I can't tell you how many times parts of my family will really come like, wow, you don't hit them? Like, no. I talk them through it, like whatever emotions they're going through or frustrations, or that behavior is definitely like their minds trying to process something. And you find when you start communicating with them, like they understand it. And if you can take them step by step, they learn the lesson. And it's so funny because then I look back, I'm like, why didn't my parents talk to me? God damn.
Yeah, also
because it's instant gratification. I'm sorry.
No,
we're
like
fine. Obsessed with like instant. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like it just reminds me of like when my parents, like, I'll ask certain questions and they have this thing where it's just like, what did I tell you? If you ask me again, I'm gonna hit you. Like, it's just like, and when you're saying that about society and stuff like that, it's interesting because it's almost like you can't question politics or you can't question why things are a certain way, because then you are an issue. So that is pretty it's pretty interesting to learn.
So now, before you got to this, the unpacking, the cat call, like, what was your first thing? Like, how did you even transition into? Because no one's growing up going, well, nowadays kids are like, no one's growing up like, oh, I want to be in social media. I want to do this. I want to create stuff. So, like, how did you get here?
Woo. Okay, so one day my dad met my mom. I'm going to try to make it as concise as possible. I mean, when I was younger, I really wanted to be an actress. That was my dream. I went to a performing arts high school, all that good stuff. After 4 years of like classical theater training, all that good stuff, I went out into the real world, started auditioning, and got slapped in the face with the reality of no one gives a shit that you know Shakespeare. No one gives a shit of your 4 years of classical theater, all that stuff. And I think that I've taught kids yoga, and Kat is right. It's all about communication, talking to them. Yes, Claudia.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah.
And going on audition after audition, and I know y'all can probably relate, like it took an emotional toll on me. And I think what people forget is that like I was 17, 18, maneuvering, the industry by myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't have parents who were like producers, writers, whatever. I was maneuvering all of that by myself. And so as a young girl of color, still formulating my own identity and grappling with that, walking into auditions after audition where it's mainly white people, mainly men who are the casting directors, who are the producers, who are like, basically they are evaluating how well you fit the stereotype that they have written or that someone else has written. And so psychologically that does a number on you where you're like, wait, so like if I'm not getting this role, am I Latina enough? Like if they're asking me to go in and do an accent and I'm not doing the accent right, like what does that mean about me? Like, am I not Colombian enough and not all this stuff? And eventually, I was just tired of it. And basically I say, what does a millennial with an identity crisis do? They turn to YouTube, and I made a YouTube channel. At that time, it was just a way to vent. It was a way for me to cope. Please don't ever look at any of the videos that I ever made prior to just like 2 years ago. Even.
Too late. I'm going to start watching them now.
I'm going to do my research today on YouTube.
Right.
Jeez, God, the mistakes I've made not only in producing the content, but my hair, my eyebrows, it's just, anywho. Yeah, so I just took to YouTube and I made content there, and people caught wind that there was someone who knew how to work a camera and got hired by companies and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, okay. And so do you ever think about ever becoming an actress again, or like pursuing that? Because I think it's no.
She said she didn't even let you finish.
At all. So you're just like, you know what? I don't even like this. Because I mean, things are changing now. You don't think?
I think I got so comfortable with like the freedom of just me being me and not being constricted to like different opinions of who I am, you know, like, so I don't know. I feel like my gut says no, but I guess probably not.
So then for someone like you, what is I don't want to say the end goal, because that sounds so like, you're dying, but like what, like, is it like a production company? Is there like, do you want to run a studio? Do you want to run a network? Like, what's your vision?
I love producing. I think people also, as you said, like people often think of like an end goal, like one goal I'm supposed to have, and I'm perfectly fine producing with me in front of the camera, with me not in front of the camera. There's tons of content that I have produced that has nothing to do with me in front of the camera that people will never know, because, you know, if you Google me, that work won't come up. So I'm like a type A anxiety-ridden person. So that comes in handy when it comes to producing, you know, film, primarily film.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like the term end goal because it does change. Like when I first started doing comedy, for me, I was like, all right, I'm gonna get that special, then I'm gonna get that network TV show, and then that's it. And then you start doing it, and you're like, oh, hold up. First of all, on network TV, so things start changing. And then as you age and you start learning the business, like, you know, I just recently sold an adult animated show. Adult animation is not a space I even, like 10, 15 years ago, you would have been like, would you do an adult anime? I'd be like, what is that? Nah, I'm good. So, you know, it changes with time.
So what has been the proudest project that you've ever produced?
So it's not out yet. So I feel like
okay.
I can talk about it. I just
by the way, you're not the first guest to come here and tease a project that it's not out yet. And I always get like, come on.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I mean. I meant more like I wish it was out so folks can enjoy it. I'm waiting on that release date, but I was an associate producer on a feature documentary about reggaeton, socio-political documentary about reggaeton with filmmaker Raquel Cepeda, with Mass Appeal. And so about, I think at this point, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 1 year and a half, I was traveling to Panama, Colombia, Puerto Rico, interviews in New York. And that to me is something that I'm very proud of, because I think, you know, reggaeton now is mainstream. It's cool. You got Bieber, you know, singing Spanish. You got all these like white people singing along to Spanish lyrics, not knowing what they're singing along to. Meanwhile, native Spanish speakers are shamed or discriminated against for speaking Spanish. So I think that the documentary does a really great job at diving into the roots, the deep roots, the Black roots of the culture. So educating us as Latinos, Latinx, Latine, Hispanic, etc. Us, while also, you know, educating outsiders too, to be more like mindful consumers.
Now, I do want to get into this because you emailed us and you were like, oh, what are we going to talk about? And I want to talk about the last post you threw up on Instagram.
Oh, we got the screen share.
Yeah, look at that.
So this is, are you doing, first of all, are you doing a series on toxic masculinity, or is this just a challenge you've thrown out for people to talk about?
Listen, Eric, have you read the 7 slides that I spent 3 days making? No.
I read the slides. That's what I'm asking, because I know in the caption, it's just, hey, have this IG live convo with other people. And if you scroll through in your feed, you do a lot of unpacking. But this one, I'm wondering if you're going to unpack, or if you've even had people approach to have that conversation this week. Because I'm a guy. I'll have this conversation with you, Kat. I'm ready to unpack with you.
So the idea behind Unpacking Men, as you all heard, I have an IG live series that I've done where we unpack social norms each week. But there's one on the police. But this is a challenge to men, to specifically cishet men, which is basically like men who are not trans, men who are quote unquote straight, like hetero, to speak with one another about toxic masculinity, about just handling their bullshit to make it more accessible. Just handle your own bullshit. I've seen at the beginning of, let's say, quarantine, I think I've seen so many conversations among women leading conversations, women organizing conversations, participating in conversations about an abundance of shit, right? Mm-hmm. So at the beginning of quarantine, it's like, let's talk about how are we going to manage, working from home while also, taking care of the kids. Let's do an IG live about self-care. Let's do a live about meditation. Let's do a live about, men still fucking harassing us while we're wearing masks. Women have dialogue with one another constantly about anything and everything. We are communicators. We've been socialized that way, thank God. Whereas men, and specifically straight men, don't talk, right? Mm-hmm. You all have like whole fucking comedy sets about like, oh my God, can women just shut the fuck up talking all the time? That's funny, but it's actually very, very, very harmful to the development of men. Like, take women aside for a second. Y'all not talking to one another is literally toxic to you. Mm-hmm. To the development, like, who do you turn to when you are going through an emotional crisis?
And I think that
you turn to women.
Right. And I think I think also like things are changing. Like, I feel like this is very necessary, and especially, so I'm so grateful that like you're very candid to talk about things that are taboo to some people and people aren't like privy to. So these are one of the reasons why I appreciate you so much. But I also feel like there is a conditioning with men that has gone now through like centuries where they feel all this pressure of like being the provider for the family. But as everything is changing, you're starting to see that women are providers as well, that women are carrying a lot of loads on their back as well. And on top of that, having children. So when you really have you're not the only one bringing the bacon, right? You're not out there. You're not the only one hunting your food anymore. Like thinking about it, it's like women are going out there. Women are getting jobs. Women are talking. Women are doing all these things. What is your excuse of not having a conversation now? What's happened? Like what is happening right now that you feel like you have so much pressure when like I am working as much as you, I'm doing as much as you, and I'm probably like a mother or something, or you know what I mean? So I do think that these conversations are very necessary, so especially, Erik, what's up?
I'll tell you a story, and I'm not in any way trying to defend, because
No, you're the only guy here, so
I know, no, because I agree with you. I think it's been years and years of just patterns. Mm-hmm. Like I when I first got married, about a year in, me and her started going to therapy. And anytime you bring up therapy, people right away, oh, what's happening? Is she? Are you? And it wasn't that at all for us. It was realizing I don't know how to talk to her.
Oh.
I don't know how to communicate. Because, again, I come from a marriage, my parents, I think we didn't sit down for dinner and talk to each other. How was your day? How was your day? Good. This is what I did. That I never saw that conversation live. I would see it on TV, but I never saw it live. So we don't realize that effect it has on kids, where if that's what they see, and all they're doing is downloading the same software that their dad is downloading on them and their dad downloaded on them. So it becomes a cycle of just bad relationships, bad marriages. And I would see it in my family all the time, like marriages would just not last because, she's always just bothering me, telling me about her day, and she wants me to talk about my feelings, and we don't know how to do that. So we started going to therapy because I was like, I have no idea how to communicate. And we would have like these weird conversations like, I can't read your mind. You got to tell me what's going on in your head. Like, that's the only way. She was like, and she put it to me one time, and I was just like, that shit makes sense. Because she was like, let me ask you a question. If you went to a comedy club, right, and you were there to work the weekend, and they didn't tell you what time the shows were, and at the end of it, they paid you less than what you thought you were getting paid. They did this. And she started like listening to all that. She goes, would you work that club? I'm like, hell no. She goes, exactly. So if you're good at communicating to that club the things you need and want, why can't you do it with me? And I was like, you're up to something. I don't
Oh, you smart, yeah.
You look at you.
Shout out to your therapist. Shout out to your wife.
Yeah. So we went to therapy for me to learn how to communicate. Now, am I saying I'm the best? No, I still have my issues where sometimes I'll internalize something. I'm like, ugh, she should just know, and get angry about it because that's how I learn, So, but I'm trying to make that effort so that my kids, my two boys, can see that and go, look at they talk to each other. They try to communicate. They did this, they did that, and they'll better their situation moving forward. Because that's I think that's what every parent wants. Like, I'm gonna give you this, and you do better. So having that conversation, like, you're right. Like, it's just, and I'm not making an excuse for any man, but like, it's just software we've been passed down. Like, we don't know any better.
Socialized, absolutely. Yeah, this is exactly what you said. It's software that's passed down. But when we started this, I said this is very harmful to men. And that's very true. There's a reason why men have higher suicide rates than women. You literally have no one to turn to with your emotional baggage. And who you end up turning to are the most intimate women in your lives. Your sister, your wife, your mom, maybe, I don't know. And then, that goes back to how this is toxic to us, where even in moments, let's say, of crisis, when maybe there's a difficult conversation among men that they should be having, men are turning to women being like, yo, what should I do? Like, I don't understand, like, da, 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 da. And that's a lot. That's a lot for us to bear. We have our own shit. Not only are we literally, maybe not intentionally, but as a whole, on a societal level, men are oppressing us, right? Every day. And then on top of it, our intimate partner, let's say in this case, a husband, is now needing our emotional labor. This shit is like exhausting. Y'all need to begin to have conversations with one another and like break those cycles without us having to be the sole provider and guiders of those conversations.
So now, then what's the conversation I have? Like, all right, so I went to therapy. I'm not saying I'm the best communicator, but I'm working on I'm working with an iPhone 7, let's say. And then my friend, he's got an iPhone 1. So I'm like, hey man, let's talk about our feelings. Like, what feelings? What's wrong with you, man?
Apps. Yeah.
So how do you approach that conversation with another guy to be like, because I think that's the hardest thing for guys. Like, don't get me wrong, I have guy friends in my life that I consider that I can share my feelings with, I can share my emotions with, because they're on the same wavelength. But then I also do have those friends from back home where if I was like, hey man, blah 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 blah, and oh, what are you gay? Because that's right away, that's how they grew up. I'm just gonna hit you with this because I don't know how to feel about that.
Right.
So how do you help them? As for me, how do I reach out to that friend and go, hey man, maybe we should upgrade this software? How do we?
I mean, yes, of course. Like, we're talking about an IG Live unpacking series, which is like more programmed. I'm not saying like this is only limited to this week, you know, only have these conversations publicly. They should be happening privately too. And no, they don't have, the private conversations don't got to be like, hey man, I really want to sit down and talk out toxic masculinity with you and our feelings. Let's undo generational trauma. No. I think though it's really funny that you're asking me like, how do I go about this when
okay, fine, I'll talk about my feelings with you, Erik.
Look, there you go.
Shout out to Peter Marietta.
But you're a comedian, so I find it really funny that you're like kind of duped by this question of like, how do I talk to other men about my feelings, when I feel like comedy has always been the best vehicle to make any difficult conversation, any difficult topic more palatable, more accessible. So it doesn't mean you got to organize like a sit down red table with your men, although that would be really great to see men have their own fucking red table.
I know, right?
Do you even check in on your guy friends? Like something as fucking simple as being like, hey man, how you doing? Like,
I grew up with 6 brothers, right? And I've seen the way that they've communicated, right? And with men, they don't have emotional conversations when they meet. All they talk about is sports. And that is just a layer that they speak about so that they don't get deep with whatever it is that they need to get deep with, right? They don't go and say, hey, something happened and my wife said this and that. They'll go on there and talk to their boy about, yo, you see what LeBron did? I don't think look at LeBron's stats. And they fucking dive into these stats versus diving into like actual rooted issues that are happening at home and maybe asking another man, like, how are you dealing with this situation? So I think that, a lot of times people think that women are just gossiping and stuff like that. And there is a lot of gossip between us, but we're also like, bitch, this happened and how did you handle it, right? Men don't really have that, right? Because, also toxic masculinity it also stems from parenting. And when I say parenting, I also mean moms. Mothers that enable this type of behavior, mothers that are telling you that it's okay for you to have sex when you're a 16-year-old boy, but when you go and you tell your daughter that she is not allowed to have sex until she gets married, like that right there, you're giving into toxic masculinity at a very young age, telling this kid that he needs to man up and do adult things, like adult things, but yet your daughter can't, and he can be out to whatever time, but then your daughter can't. So he's out in this world trying to pretty much raise himself. And then, I've seen this within my own family, how women will talk about other girls. So it's embedding in his life and in his self not to trust women because she, the mom is calling these girls hoes and all these things. So that stems from that as well, right? So it's like, and I can tell the difference between like a guy that was raised by a mom that's like, pero bueno, ¿qué es lo que tú te crees? Hablándole con la muchacha así, like tratando mujeres así, tú eres loco, like you could tell the difference between a mom treating their son like that and telling them that they need to respect women, and the moms that are like, no, just respect me because I am not like other women. I am so holy and I've never done anything wrong, but treat me special, but fuck these other bitches. That's a problem. And I see that a lot.
That's fucking real. I forget like who fucking coined this term called loophole woman, where it's basically you are the exception to the rule of like the annoyance that is women, and you try to position yourself the closest to masculinity as possible. And that's real too. Like this challenge, this unpacking men challenge is not, I'm completely aware that women also can perpetuate toxic masculinity. But the issue that I'm trying to highlight is that men just don't talk to men, and specifically straight men don't talk to straight men, and you rely on the labor of women, the emotional labor which I think is also something that men don't think about. What do you, emotional labor? What is that? Emotional labor meaning like para desahogarte, to vent. Like to vent, when men do vent about their feelings, when they do have their explosive like crying moments, when they do want to workshop an idea out, when they need help addressing a really huge crisis in their life, they turn to women. And because you don't get enough support throughout your lifetime, like cuando te desahogas, when you vent, it's a lot. It's like you're fucking puking on us, and we're like, ah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm not ignorant to the fact that like women are absolutely capable, and we do fucking perpetuate. Oh, I don't know. I could curse, right?
Yeah, you curse. Yeah.
We can, and we do perpetuate toxic masculinity. But this is specifically for men to talk to men and publicly, because I think that part of this is like shifting what men deem as normal. Right. So if perhaps there are more conversations among men talking to each other about a multitude of things outside, and for example, you know, like the images that I use were like talk about toxic masculinity the way you would about sneakers. If you have more public conversations that are outside of the norm, outside of sports, sneakers, whatever, it can encourage and make other men feel safe to have these dialogues privately.
I think that's great. I think that's so true.
Yeah, there's some topics here that I like just going through. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, fear of not being a good father. I always bring that up because I got kids, and that was a big one for me when my wife was pregnant. It was that fear, because again, I'm looking at the old software that raised me, and I'm going, oh boy, what does it mean to be a good father? You know, and now also raising boys. You know, I look at this topic that you've posted, and it's like, you know, I want to raise them right so as not to perpetuate any of this or to keep any of the cycle going. Not that, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm 100% toxic masculinity free, but you know, I'm sure there's things I do that I don't even realize. Like, I'm sure there's things guys do that we don't even realize as toxic masculinity, and we just do on a regular basis because either that's the way we were taught or that's just the norm.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything on that list that, like, because, you know, is there anything not on this list? It's just a little thing where it's like, oh, you guys shouldn't do that. Because it's a pretty like going to therapy. I told my story about how I went to therapy, and a lot of guys look at therapy like, "What? You just want to get me on the couch and cry? It's crazy." Showing vulnerability.
I think that's a great subject for you to talk publicly, because I think that is part of the issue. More women go to therapy, and women who don't go to therapy have a support group, which is our fucking group chats, our FaceTimes with our homegirls. Those are, in a way, you know, moments for us to vent, to workshop our ideas. Yes, Leo. So I think like something as simple as you having a public conversation about your experience going to therapy, you know, what you've learned in therapy. I mean, you know, obviously discretion, but you know, your thoughts overcoming maybe going to therapy, acknowledging from what I heard thus far, acknowledging that it took a woman to bring you to therapy for you to grow, right? Like you didn't do that on your own. So that's a great subject for you to start with.
Right. And isn't it statistically speaking, when men get married, they live longer?
Mira, Sasha, thank you so much for bringing this fucking stat.
Yes. Like way too much credit. So, she brought me to therapy.
It's a fact. Without being married, they die faster. Like, you're going to live a wonderful life, Erik.
I'm going to live 50 now.
Your fucking lifespan. Thank you so much, Sasha. Yes, that is a fucking real stat. We'll Google it later. Everybody Google it now. Men's lifespan gets fucking longer when you have a female companion in your life. Think about it. Who, like, y'all are eating fucking junk. junk food, you know, or excessive eating, or not working out, not having, you know, like any physical, mental, emotional practices to better yourselves, who basically maintains friendships, you know, even though men will be like, oh God, it's so annoying, I can't believe she invited the whole family, da, 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 da. If it wasn't for her organizing the whole parties and whatnot and making the baby showers or whatever, y'all wouldn't have friendships. Because in order to have friendships, develop friendships, you have to invest emotion. And y'all, unfortunately, due to socialization, are literally not developed in this area. So it's not an exaggeration to say that, like, cishet men deserve to give a lot of credit for your lives to women. And let's let's go there. Even when we talk about, you know, right now, look at like Black Lives Matter. Who were the women who started the movement? 3 Black women. What is the concentration on the movement? Men, right? Does anybody care about Black women who go missing or who get murdered? Do they get the same amount of attention?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like I'm being attacked here.
No, you're not. I'm sorry.
That's part of the problem. Is your fertility. No,
Yeah.
But did y'all see what LeBron did? Did y'all see? Did y'all see? Come on.
What? But no, this is really useful information, and I think that this is definitely the best start. You know what I'm saying? And definitely unpacking men. Like, I'm putting people on this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I saw my girlfriend, my homegirl Talisha. She goes, "I love this," and then she tagged her boyfriend that she's been with for so long.
Yeah, but I think that's what you have to do. I think a couple of weeks ago, me and Sasha, after the whole Black Lives Matter movement started, we were so amped up, and we just had a conversation about a candid conversation. And I think that's what a lot of times people don't have those conversations, even if you don't have your thoughts straight, because a lot of guys aren't going to have their thoughts. It's going to be all scattered about what they feel about toxic masculinity. Just start having the conversation, get it out. And then sooner or later, you'll start being able to, okay, this goes here, this goes there, and make it make more sense. But I agree with you. We need to have that conversation because
actually this happened to me. Like, I don't think like I'm a confrontational person, and especially when it comes to like stand-up comedy, like I don't like getting in between people's sets. But there was this comedian that he came on stage and he goes, toxic masculinity, like what is that, like what is toxic masculinity? And he's baiting the audience, right? And some girl raised her hand and he goes, "What's toxic masculinity?" And she's all in the back and like she's spewing facts, right? She's saying facts. She's like, "Oh, toxic masculinity." He's like, "Shut the fuck up. You don't know what toxic masculinity is." And he turns around to the crowd and there were so many women there that laughed. So many women there that laughed. And that's why it's like, it gets me. So I was in the crowd and I was like, that was toxic masculinity. I told him.
Did that get laughed? That's funny.
I'm like, that was how he was like, "Oh, that's not." Oh, he almost lost the crowd. Like, he was like, "That's not toxic masculinity." Like, he could have made what he could have been. He could have been funny about it. Like, if he would have heard her out, he's like, "Ma'am, I think that's toxic femininity right there. You trying to, that would have been funny because you kind of would have like at least made it equal or something." But he was literally like baiting the audience and, "Shut the fuck up. You don't know what the fuck that is. You just like blah, blah." And so many women were laughing. And I was just like, yo, like I felt like I had to say something. And it really bothered him. It really bothered him that he went on a podcast and started talking about it as well. But
it's somebody well known. You said he went on a podcast.
No. Like he's not like well known, but he is a comedian. But I was just like, it bothered him. He's nobody. Then he tried to flip it and he tried to act like we were heckling him. And like the girl didn't know what she was talking about. First of all, you didn't even give the girl a chance. And you were acting like the girl interrupted your set when you were baiting the girl just to make a joke and make somebody look dumb. You know, a good stand-up comedian, what they do is just like, you know, they ask questions and then they know how to like make it funny, just make it funny, but not to make someone feel like shit when they're telling you something that's a fact, right? So that was like, huh?
Yeah, probably I think because he felt like shit.
Yeah, and then he goes on, but then and then again, the toxic masculinity continues because within the interview, he's like, hey, you know, some Instagram comedian that she hasn't even been doing it. Like, she's a little Instagram comedian that hasn't been doing it for so long, and she thinks that she could just do stand up and blah blah. Oh, that's also toxic masculinity right there. So it was just how that goes on, and people don't understand that what they're doing is just like, just read a book. You're talking about you dating young girls. There's no way you're dating young girls and they're not telling you about toxic masculinity. There's no way.
That is one of the subjects that I put there too. If you know, men want to talk about is their fascination with younger women. You know.
Yeah, this is great. I love this topic.
Lots of layers. I think though it's important. I feel like a guy like that would, if he were to participate, he'd probably tackle this by speaking about other men. Mm-hmm. And that's like part of the issue. I've already had many men contact me and it's like, oh, I can't wait to talk about toxic masculinity. I'm going to talk about this motherfucker. I'm going to talk about that guy. I'm going to talk about how men shouldn't do. And I'm like, so one, read the slide, because I specifically say this is not about other men. This is about you. Peter gets it.
Yeah, I love Peter.
Yes, Peter. Yes, you and your beard get it.
Yes. I don't.
Oh, okay, Peter, you get yourself an older woman. Okay, Peter, and your life is longer.
That's right. This is so important to talk about. Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I want if there are men who are watching, why hello. Mm-hmm. If you decide to take on this challenge, which it's currently happening all this week, I'm trying to like flood Instagram with these combos. Focus your conversation on yourself. Right. So it's not to talk about, oh, look at this guy. Remember when da-da-da-da, or like, I hate it when men catcall. Like, I don't do that. I don't know why men do that. Have you been around men who do that? And if you don't say anything to those men, whether in the moment or afterwards or whatever, privately, are you complicit? Like, you know, like, don't think about it as a moment for men to talk shit about the other men. Right. Talk about yourself. Because as Erik said, there are ways that you are maybe not consciously, you know, hurting women.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. I love it.
At the end of the day, like, is exactly what you said. If they don't have this conversation, the only people that they're hurting is themselves. Because what's going to happen is, because women are already getting to a place where, you know, we are breaking that stereotype or feeling like we need to be with someone and starting to realize like we can build our careers, we can make these friendships, we could create these sisterhoods and like, you know, and what I'm trying to say is that it's less depending on the male to get married and have to have value that way and, you know, wait for someone to take care of you financially, which is something that, you know, for so long women thought that gave them value. And women are becoming woke to that and understanding that they don't necessarily need anyone because we'll live longer if we don't take care of y'all. And there's gonna be some point where men are gonna find themselves alone just because they're not, you know, trying to break the cycle. You know,
just you hear that, man? Go break the cycle.
Break that cycle, man. Like, I know, because I grew up with 6 brothers, and them motherfuckers is toxic. Like, I'm telling you right now, right? Like, them motherfuckers. But like, even now, like my brother's like 40 years old, and he's the more wiser one. Uh-huh. So he's like talking to all my brothers, and he's like, "Hey guys, this is wrong. What are you doing? Why are you talking to women like this?" Like, now he's the one that's doing it, but it's like now at 40, come on. But it's not too late to start, which is great. So he's doing that. Right. He's like the voice of reasoning for these guys. And I'm happy that that that's happening, because they were really toxic. They would be dating all these girls and stuff like that, and then they'll do things where they will be like, Sasha, tell her that I really, really like her, and then I talk about her a lot, and I'm like, yeah, but I just met her. She's like, yeah, just say what I told you, and I'm like, okay, you know. So these
I feel like there's a topic we could talk about all day, and I hate to cut it short, but we're about to hit the hour mark. But
a guy is trying to silence us.
I can't win.
No, you wouldn't know. I'm sorry, Erik.
I'm going to therapy, y'all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Erik. This definitely became
go. Sorry.
Yeah.
But no, I thank you so much, Kat, for coming on. Hold on, Peter. I know that in the past I've been around and I've said shit because it felt awkward, and I remember the very moment I had to say that's not enough to not just say anything or add in. It has to be called out, and it's hard. But yeah, he's right. Sometimes it's tough because you don't want your boys to look at you different, or this is who you are now, but you got to do it. And I love that you're posting that challenge to have that conversation. Like me and Sasha are really big on people need to have the conversation about these topics that are coming up, that are affecting our lives. Have the conversation. You know, I'll tell you now. I've got a friend that's in my life. He's one of my closest friends, but for the first couple years, like I remember we would go do road gigs together, and Kate would go, So what's his dad like? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, he's been your friend for 5 years. Like, what do y'all talk about in the car? Sports. And she's like, what?
Right.
Talk to him. And now he's that friend for me where, like, we know about our lives. We know about our upbringing. We know how we feel about certain things. And it's a better relationship. It's a better friendship for it.
Yeah.
So, like, guys, stop shutting your mouth. Converse.
Yeah. One thing I will say is, and I'm going to end it with this, is that women have different strengths and men have different strengths, right? And knowing your strengths and knowing your differences can make you a great team. So that's why communication is very important.
Yeah. So Kat, tell everybody where they can find you.
I tried putting it here, but apparently it didn't fit. You can find me anywhere and everywhere as It's Kat Lazo, Lazo. Oh yeah, there's my name. So that's it.
Yeah, go find her, go follow her. She is dope. We definitely want to have you back on. Sasha, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter at Sasha Merci, and maybe TikTok, but I don't know. And you can also find me, I be underselling myself. And this show that I host with D called Like Share D Malo, So go check it out on Fuse TV on YouTube.
Yes. I'm on all things at Erik Rivera Comedy, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And go check out my half-hour special, Super White, streaming now, HBO Max, HBO Now, HBO On Demand. Go watch it, and if you've seen it already, put it on the background while you clean and cook. I need the views. Let's get that going.
This guy just making amazing things. This guy.
This guy. Thank you so much, Kat. It was a pleasure, and we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.